Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This video is going to be my top 10 all-time favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be an overview of some of my all-time favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes. Some of these have been on this list before. I do this video once a year. Other palettes are going to be newer to this, plus I have some honorable mentions. In case you're new here, you've never been to my channel, then hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love trying eyeshadow palettes as a Catrice and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's what you are looking for as well in a channel, then maybe you would like to consider subscribing. So yes, this video is about my top 10 plus 5 honorable mentions neutral eyeshadow palettes. And before we get into the list, I want to share with you what I deem to be a neutral palette, because I feel that's different for everyone. For me, a neutral palette is something I can wear every day that isn't too dark and smoky and not too light and barely there. That still gives me a certain effect, you could say, and it's also not too warm or too cool. And I think especially there, because everybody knows I love a cool tone, I really do, especially in terms of eyeshadow, but that's not what this video is about. It's not about cool tone neutral eyeshadow palettes, it's just about neutral in general. So some of these palettes have some cool tones in, but overall they are going to be skewing quite like neutral smack in the middle, between a warm and a cool, so that a lot of people can actually wear it and get away with it. Some of these are going to be a little bit deeper or have deeper shades in them. So even if you do have a deeper skin tone than I do, you will be able to get away with these. But for the most part, these are going to be best, I think, for people with light to medium skin tones. That's just because I'm so fair. That's what I try most and what I like most. It doesn't mean I don't like darker things. It's just that on me, it always turns into a smoky eye. So I don't prefer those things on myself. However, there are some more intense things in this list as well. It's not just going to be like sheer washes of color. I'm trying to sort of cast the net as widely as I can within the neutral realm. So let me get to the honorable mentions. So my 5 honorable mentions are a palette that I think is the only palette that has been on this list every single year I've done it, so it had to go in here. I could not mention it because I think people would be upset. But I also decided to include some things that are really warm toned or that I would deem true cool tones, so that if that's what you're looking for, I can still help you there as well. So let me tell you about that first palette, the one that has been on this list for such a long time that I still recommend, especially if you're a beginner in makeup. I think that this guy right here, if there's fingerprints on some of these, I do apologize. But the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom. I still, till this day, love this palette, and I keep trying some of the newer Tartelette palettes from Tarte because I love this one so much. Have I personally used this in the past year every single day of my life? No, because I think I have other things that are actually in the top 10 list now that I grab for over this, but because this is A, still available, and B, still really good, I do still want to recommend it, because it really taught me to do makeup back in the day when I first got it. Mine is super old. I'm not even sure if this is like safe to use, but here's what the color story looks like. And this is why I love this as a neutral palette, because yes, it's warm, yes, it's neutral, and it is cool toned. Now, provided if you are super fair and cool toned, this may not be as cool toned as you'd like. And if you're super warm, it's not going to be warm enough for your liking either. But I just really feel that it has everything, and every row is a look. You can just do a look with each row and the palette kind of spells it out for you. You have a shimmer that you can use in an inner corner or all over the lid in every single row as well. You get a blend shade, you get something to deepen things up with, you get something you can use in the crease. It just has everything. So that's why the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom, I still deem to be one of the, oh, it matches my sweater. I still deem this to be just one of the best neutral palettes ever made. And even though it's been around for years and probably everybody has this in this collection, in their collections, if you don't yet, I would highly recommend you get it. And if you do have it in your collection, I would recommend going back to it and falling back in love with it because it's just such a good one. Then because I only have one true warm toned palette in here, and I do want to do videos in the later in the year where I share with you like my top 10 favorite cool toned eyeshadow palettes. And I want to do the same thing for warm tones because that's a request I had. And I was still looking for a couple of video ideas for my eyeshadow palette week that I like to do every year in April. I'm in the midst of filming loads of other things. So these themed videos are fun to plan ahead, you could say. So I definitely want to do that. I think already in eyeshadow palette week, one of them, and then one of them in eyeshadow palette month later in August. Because I'm currently also really in the midst of trying quite a few cool tone things. So I need to sort of really, in order to be able to do those videos and wrap my head around things, I need a couple of weeks/months to try out everything that I have currently sitting on the to try pile, you could say. But again, like the Tartelette, the palette I have for you that is warm toned has been around for years. And as far as I know, you can still buy it. At least it's still listed on the website. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this guy. The Juvia's Place Saharan. Just the standard Saharan, not like the number, one of the very first palettes that Juvia's Place came out with. Now, I did change mine. I'm going to have to be very honest because you get a peach instead of this cranberry shade when you buy the palette. I had the Afrique lying about and there was only one shade I liked. I didn't love the peach in here, so I swapped them around and broke this one apart and repressed it into the pan and took the peach out. So that's what I ended up doing, but it's a really good one if you love warm tones, and it's still a little bit special to me as well as far as a warm tone palette goes, and that's why I keep this around in my collection. It has a perfect sort of crease shade for me, and then you have this orange tone and then this bright neon, which I just feel looks stunning on. So you get something to ground it as well in the black. It has a cool tone because this is like a gray-green kind of thing. And then you have loads of shimmer options because you get a true rose gold, you get this berry kind of shade, then I pop that berry shade in there. You get an actual bronze in here. The rose gold, by the way, is over here. This is the bronze. I'm trying to look at it in the viewfinder at the same time. And this gold, I don't love yellow tone golds, but this is the kind of gold that has a green undertone, and I do really like those. And the white has a bit of a blue flip. So that's a fun, clash with the rest of the palette, I feel. So yeah, this palette just has everything that I wanted in terms of a warm tone. If I just would recommend you get one warm tone palette that is more neutral leaning, but that has some fun pops of color, but it does kind of do everything that you would want a warm tone palette to do, then check out Juvia's Place. It's affordable and it's been around for a while. They still do it and I still really like mine. Again, have I used this in the past year? No, which is why it's an honorable mention and it's not in the top 10. And of course, I have plenty of true cool tones to share with you, and these are all things I tried with in 2023. So they're all quite recent likes. I mean, I could have put so many things on the list and I'm like, these are just, I just want to rave about these again. And they're part of the honorable mention. So I do want to speed this part up because you've just heard me talking about this loads. Dior Silver Essentials. It doesn't get any more cool tone than this, does it? It's essentially a gray palette with purples and pinks. I mean, and I was saying how I don't love gray tones, but I do like these because they go with the purples and the pinks really well. They're not too stark. Some grays can just blend a little bit weird because gray isn't necessarily a natural tone in your overall coloring. So that's why I always find grays a little bit difficult to get away with, but these are beautiful. It is a very satin heavy palette though, so if you don't love satins, you won't like this, but I do really like this one. I'm currently wearing something else that's very cool tone that kind of does what this one does, at least with the first look I did, but I'm still testing it out. It's always in the description box below what I'm wearing, but if you want to know, it's the Glamlite Ghostface palette. That was part of the review for January as well. So I played with that for the first time today, and I'm liking it so far, which surprised me because I've tried only one Glamlite palette before, and I really did not like it, so this I thought was pretty successful so far. Then we have, of course, Lisa Eldridge, the Sorcery palette, the Vega palette, I should say. And I just dropped it, but it's still fine, it seems. So here again, cool tone neutrals, and it's more taupe leaning. And I prefer a taupe. You get like a taupe matte, a taupe shimmer. This thing you can like put all over things because it's like a sheer thing, another taupey thing, a blue and a black. It just, again, it has everything I want. Like, I don't need much more than this, you could say. And I do have some like cooler toned options within the top 10 as well, but this I feel skews far more cool toned than some of the things I'm featuring in the top 10. And finally, I was like struggling where to put it because I almost put this in the top 10, and then I was like, no, I'm going to make this an honorable mention and put another favorite palette that I loved in 2023 within the top 10. And the thing I want to feature here as an honorable mention is the Kaleidos Alma Viva Venus Trap Neutral Palette. It's just, I really, really like it. I know a lot of people thought it was boring, but I love things like this. So maybe I'm just a boring makeup user, who knows, but perfect crease shade for me, great blend shade. I love that this is like a slight lavender pink. Love the shimmer in here. You get something to deepen it up to, you know, do a liner or maybe deepen up an outer V. Like, it's a well-rounded 4-pen palette, and if you're someone who's on the go a lot and you just want a small curated palette that can see you through and have you do quite a lot of looks, plus the shimmer in this is incredibly sparkly and impactful. So I really enjoy these. I really like my Kaleidos quads, and I have ranked a lot of them at like the top half of yearly rankings ever since they came out with these. So had to feature this one here too. But now we're getting into the proper top 10. And as I mentioned, there are palettes on the list that I have featured before. Case in point. I have to rave about some of my all-time favorite palettes, you guys. When I do a list like this, I can't leave out the Viseart Kashmiri. And here again, I think that this is really the replacement of the Tartelette by In Bloom from Tarte. For me anyways. I did buy the 2 new ones that they came out with at the end of the year. I just want to see how similar they are to this, because they came out with like the Charmeuse, which they say is like the companion palette for this one. Something I've always loved about this is that, you know, you get something that's cool, you get something rosy, you get something warm toned, and then you get some neutrals at the top that are a little bit lighter. But this, again, you can just do everything with, and I love how all of these shades pair together. You can use it like this. You can use it as a quad. You can use quintets. You can go diagonal. Every single like way you can put these shades together, it's gonna work. It's gonna work out. And that's what I love about this Viseart Kashmiri palette. And that's why I'm saying, like, I really do think that this one is just a replacement of the Tartelette for me, the In Bloom, because this I feel does a similar thing, but it has the rosy tones, which I find is a perk, and this just has more shimmers. Like, the Tartelette only has 3, and here we get more shimmers, which I enjoy. I mean, about half, yeah, just over half the palette is actually shimmers, which I prefer a shimmer over a matte, so for me, I like the formula a little bit better. So yeah. The Tartelette has been replaced by the Kashmiri. It will come as no surprise that this palette is in the list as well. The Catrice Falling Colors, featured it last year, have been raving about it all year, and then they brought it back in the fall time. Again, I'm gonna have to check to see if it's still on Amazon, because that's where I found that they brought it back, and it was shipped from Germany for me. So I think that because it's on Amazon, it's also easier to get for people who are not in the EU now. And it came out in some Southern European countries as well, because I've heard people say that this came out in Portugal and places like Italy, Spain, and Romania, so more like the Romance language area of Europe, and they came out with it there at the end of 2023. So very happy that this came back. I did not expect that to happen. It was limited edition, but Catrice Falling Colors is a Huda Beauty eyeshadow palette quality-wise, but at 15 euros. And I love this thing to pieces. It has a little bit more depth than some of the other things I've shown you so far. The shimmer quality of this is amazing. Like, let me just swatch one so you can see. So I'm just like sticking my finger in, in this rosy shade. So here it is on the back of my, can I like go really close in so you can see? Like, can you see that? Like, it's just incredibly beautiful. I really, really adore this Catrice palette. The mattes are amazing. The shimmers are amazing. The undertones are amazing. You get warmth. Like, this entire middle row here is warm, but you get some really lovely cool tones in here. It's quite rosy and like purpley plum leaning, actually. You get some berry shades. You get some really, like, the darkest shade is a plum, which I really enjoy. You get a little bit of warmth to break through it, but you also get a really good, like, taupe transition shade. So I really, really enjoy the Catrice Falling Colors for sure. And if you've been with me in 2023, you know how much I raved about Gloss Gods all year. I tried this at the start of 2023, and I kind of snuck it into, like, a little bit like I'm doing with some palettes I'm featuring today that are new to me, because I made a point of trying this before filming this video last year, so I would know how I felt about it, and this was one of my favorite palettes of the year. In fact, I think in my yearly ranking, this was my #1. And it's the new Neutrals Remixed from Gloss Gods. Look at how stunning this is. It's got multi-chromes and duochromes in that pull a little bit green. This entire bottom row is a little bit more cool tone leaning. The middle row is a little bit more warm toned. And then you get some more like neutrals in like this half of the palette. The only thing that's truly warm is this. And on me, with a more like neutral to cool undertone, these pull a little bit pink, which is why they work. And this has the intensity, like if you love indie shadows and you want intense color payoff, this is the palette for you in terms of a neutral. Especially if you're in the European Union. I know a lot of people are currently like raving about things like Ensley Rain and Bella Beauty Bar. Like they've done some really pretty indie palettes, like they're indie brands with really pretty palettes that have really impactful shimmers and they do really interesting things. And I feel that Gloss Gods is those kind of palettes, but at a more affordable price point if you're in the EU. Not if you're in the US, then you're better off buying something like Ensley Rain, or I haven't tried Ensley Rain yet, so I'm guessing that that's sort of similar to it, because you would have to pay too much in shipping and handling fees. But since they're Swedish, if you're in the EU, then the other indie brands from the US can be a little bit more expensive to get, and then they are quite affordable because one of these sets you back around 40 euros, which an Ensley Rain palette sets you back 80 euros just for the palette, or sometimes even more, depending on where you get it. So yeah, this is something I really, really adore, and this is the thing I wanted to feature here for the people who really love their pigmentation and their really impactful high shine shimmers. Check this one out if you haven't. And another oldie but goodie, I think this is the 3rd or 4th year that this palette is on the list, and this is actually on the list for me to go back to in January to feature again, because it is one of my favorite like January wintertime palettes, and it's the Rose Quartz from Huda Beauty. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. Again, I'm just putting this in as a reminder. If you have this and you have it lying about and you haven't used it in a while like I do, go back to it. Look at how stunning she is. Again, a little bit of warmth, but a lot of like rosy, cooler tones in the rest of the palette with a hint of purple. So stunning. Really nice shine, like shiny, shimmery sort of shimmers in here. I love, again, that we get that blend of the taupe with some of the plummy things. In a way, it's like some of these shades seem to be in the Catrice palette, but then they've like picked and chosen from other Huda Beauty color stories and like threw something together themselves, which I enjoy because Catrice actually in this like 18 pan layout has duped Huda Beauty palettes in the past, and this seems to be more like their own thing. But yeah, the Rose Quartz from Huda Beauty, an oldie but a goodie. I still love mine, 2 pieces, which is why I wanted to make a point of using it again in January and having to feature it here. And then a couple of palettes that I really just enjoyed when I tried them for the first time in 2023. Some of these made it into the top 10 of my 2023 palette ranking as well. But there's one thing I wanted to share because it is quite neutral and quite boring, which is why, as far as like a neutral palette, I don't find it too interesting. So it didn't end up too high in my yearly palette ranking compared to everything else I had tried. But if I'm looking at like all the neutral palettes I have, I feel that this has replaced some of my most beloved neutral tone palettes by the same brand. What am I talking about? It's the Deja Brew from ColourPop. So ColourPop has the That's Taupe and the Going Coconuts, and I have said when I first bought it, but it's still how I feel now that I've tried it, that if you marry those two palettes together, you get this. So this is the cooler tone version of the Going Coconuts, and like in terms of saturation and depth, it's the lighter sister of the That's Taupe. That's the way I feel about this. I am intentional of pulling some of these shades out and blending it together with my That's Taupe. That's the idea when I declutter my collection in March. Because I do really enjoy some of these, but I feel that the 5 mattes we get are perhaps a little bit samey, so I may want to pull some of the mattes from the That's Taupe into this. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll keep both palettes as is. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I do feel that we get a lot of really nice like range in this. I mean, this is a little bit more pinky. This is a little bit more brown. The shimmers go with it really well. And the That's Taupe, I feel, can get really smoky on me sometimes. So in terms of like a true neutral palette that isn't too glam, isn't too warm toned, I feel this is now my pick from ColourPop. And then I mentioned not everything in this video would have like a wash of color, which is why I do have to feature something that is more of a wash of color. But I do feel that in terms of like a wash of color from a K-beauty brand, this one has been my favorite ever since I tried it. This is by Romand. It's their Better Than palette in Dreamy Lilac Garden. And this was my favorite. I ranked all of the K-beauty palettes I tried over the summertime, and this one came out on top. And it made it into the top 10 of my 2023 palette ranking as well. It's got a like, this is more neutral, this is more rosy. It's got a really nice gradient, which is what I like. So you can go for the wash of color, but you can also have some shades here to get like a wing out of it or like deepening up the outer V. You only get 3 shimmers, sort of like this here. No, wait, it's just the other way around. It's this bit here. Those are the shimmers in the palette, which it's just a K-beauty thing. They just prefer to put mattes over shimmers into things because within K-beauty, they tend to prefer more like a glittery sort of finish in their shimmers. And that doesn't really work well in a palette. So what they tend to promote a lot, I feel, is a palette like this where you get your mattes and then buying a shimmer separately that you can press all over the lid for the more glam moments in your life. That sort of seems to be the vibe, but I do appreciate we get some shimmers in here. And I just really adore this little gradient that's going on. I like the Romand palettes so much that I actually bought 2 new ones if you saw my haul at the start of the month. And then another indie brand from the EU that I just love and adore. If you haven't tried them yet, look into Glam Shop. This one you can no longer buy because their palettes are always limited edition and they discontinue them very quickly actually. It's Simna Mocha. And this is the lightest one. They had an entire range of like coffee palettes. I think there were 3 or 4 of them. And this was the lightest, more cool tone one that really appealed to me the minute I saw it launch. But it is more neutral as well because you do get these like more brown things. But especially in the shimmer department, it's quite cool tone because this is essentially a darker taupe and this is a lighter taupe. You get something that's like a taupey gray. This is really interesting. This is more of like a duochrome in the middle with like the sort of pinky base, but with a blue flash. You get something that's dark enough to deepen things up, and you get a matte, that's not a matte. I always forget, it looks like a matte in the pan, but this has a bit of a pinky flip actually, which doesn't show up. But yeah, really stunning shimmer quality. Glam Shop is another EU-based indie brand that I really highly recommend. If you're looking for something affordable that is ColourPop-esque, but better, if you ask me, then this one is definitely something to look out for. It can be expensive to buy from them if you're not in the EU though, but they do ship internationally. So if your heart is set on trying Glam Shop, you can, but then the tables are turned and you're gonna have to pay for shipping and handling fees and we don't really have to. I mean, their shipping is pretty affordable. Like for both Gloss Gods and Glam Shop, I have to pay like under 10 euros for getting my shipment over, which is pretty decent, I find. And then some things where I was like, yeah, I should put them on the list. Two of them I've only just tried, so I'll save those for last. But the one I have to feature is the Love's Journey. This is one I was not going to buy. But then a friend of mine was kind enough to put this in because she had an extra one when we, she placed an order for me through Sydney Grace. And then she had this one extra, and when she sent me the products over, she sent me Love's Journey. And yeah, this is, again, like the Tartelette, like the Cashmere, it does a little bit of everything. You have your cool tones, you have your neutrals, you have your warm tones. So you have a little bit of everything within this palette, which I greatly appreciate, because I feel that that's just the way that it's done, you could say. Like, if I want to go for a neutral palette for this kind of video, I want those 3 steps to be there so that there's a little bit for everyone. It's deep enough, it's light enough, it's got enough shimmers. The shimmers in the Sydney Grace palette, however, are all going to be more satin shimmers. They're not going to be super sparkly or glittery or anything like that. It's like a metallic satin. That's how I would, because they are very impactful, but they are a little softer, you could say. But especially if you have mature lids, you have like more wrinkles and stuff. Sydney Grace is a brand I've heard a lot of like more mature ladies talking about as being like perfect for their lids. So I would definitely recommend this, especially if you're looking for a good neutral tone palette. And what's even better about Sydney Grace is that they do things in a light and a deep version. This is the light version. They usually change a couple of the colors in the like crease sort of category, the ones that you would use for blending and putting in your crease. They swap those out and make them deeper in the deep version or lighter in the light version, depending on what perspective you use. So yeah, Love's Journey, I think, as far as a neutral palette goes, it's nearly perfection. Nearly perfection. I'm not a huge fan of the warm tones in here because they pull very orange on me. If they pulled a little bit more pink, like if they had a bit slightly more red tone base to them rather than an orange, I would have liked them better. But yeah, Sydney Grace palettes are magnetic, so you can pull them apart. And if you have a couple of theirs, then you could either rearrange the palette to your liking, or what you could also do with these is that you can pull them apart and make them part of your singles collection as well. So very versatile palettes, which is another reason why I have to shout them out here, because I love a bit of versatility. I love it if I can rearrange my palettes, like, you know, with the ColourPop palettes as well. You can take a magnet, take them out, and you're fine. And you can just enjoy your eyeshadow at whichever way you want. But then, finally, the final 2 palettes I need to share with you, you will see swatches and my review at the end of this month, because I was testing these out for January. I bought them towards the end of 2023. I hadn't had time to try them yet, but the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes and the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. So let me share with you why they are 2 of my top 10 favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes. Let's start with the Makeup by Mario. So Ethereal Eyes was limited edition at the end of 2022, and then they brought it back in 2023. And the minute I saw that and I had a bit of budget like just available, I was like, I'm going to snatch it up. She's stunning. This is so beautiful in terms of the quality that you get. And as a brand, like Makeup by Mario, I got to know him because he's Kim Kardashian's makeup artist, and her makeup looks beautiful, but I feel it works for her, and it's not the kind of makeup I want to do on me. So when he came out with his own brand, I wasn't necessarily like over the moon happy, because I was thinking that a lot of the products would be achieving the sort of looks that he does on her. You know, the full beat sort of Anastasia Beverly Hills 2016 kind of thing. But it's not. I have not tried eyeshadow that is this sheer yet buildable and blendable at the same time. I'm not sure what's in this, but it's beautiful. Even shades like this that I thought were going to be too dark for me for the crease, they worked so well. And the shimmers in this, like, they have a little bit of that like poured quality that I've mentioned in the past I don't love. Very often if I really don't like a palette, it's because they have this very sort of poured cream, almost like shimmer quality in them. And these feel that way when you touch them. So when I got this in and I was swatching it, I was like, oh no, that's €100 going down the drain. Because the only place to buy this from, at least for me, was the Makeup by Mario website. And it was like €20 for shipping. And the palette itself was like listed for €80 if you're in the EU. So this was an expensive palette. But I love it. I really, really enjoy it. Because even though these shimmers all feel like they're going to be like the Patrick Ta and the Adept that I feel I can blend, they feel that way, and they are best used with a finger, for sure, to get the intensity you like, but then afterwards you can still go in with a brush and blend them out. It's like the best of both worlds. It's like you can pick up a little bit with a brush if you want that very sheer, like, just a hint of something. Like, if you want to go on with, like, what I did for one of the looks, actually, you'll see when I share it with you. It's like, I went in with one of the, like, matte shades all over the lid, and then just used a little bit of the shimmer to go over it, and it works beautifully. But if you use a finger, you can build up the intensity to where it just covers your lid and you don't have to wear color underneath it. So this just gives you options, even though it looks so limiting in the pan. But I was wowed by A, the quality, and 2, I just love my makeup every single day. I used it. I did 3 different looks with this, and I absolutely adored it. And then, last but not least, the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. And I was warned by so many of you that this was not going to be cool-toned. And I didn't want it to be cool-toned. I just wanted it to be neutral because it promises to be a nude palette. And it definitely is. The only 2 truly warm-toned shades are these 2 peachy things. So these are okay, but these pull pink on me. So I was pretty happy with that. And overall, it's got cool tones, but it has mainly, to me, like smack in the middle neutral. And does this give a similar look to what the Makeup by Mario gives you? I think to someone who doesn't know makeup, they're not going to look very different on the eyes. But this, again, I love the Natasha Denona eyeshadow formula. I just do. And I was saying, like, if I don't love this, then I'm going to use the Xenon and, like, mix those 2 together. But I think I have finally found a color story from Natasha Denona that I actually like. For the first time, I feel like it goes deep enough for me. It goes light enough for me. It has 1, 2, 3 perfect crease shades, depending on what I want to use it for. No, 4 actually. It's got enough shimmers that this thing, oh, she was stunning. Something a little bit more flaky to put all over the lid. It's got warmth, but it's not overly warm toned. This on me is a little bit rosy leaning, so it's giving me like rose quartz vibes in that sense as well. So yeah, I liked both of these a lot, just so much so. With Natasha Denona, I like the color story better, and with the Makeup by Mario, I'm more in love with the quality, I would say. I didn't really tell you much about the shades you get in here, because this looks quite warm. I find, like, if I look at it, it looks warm, but you get a very nice cool tone taupe leaning sort of shimmer, and then you do get a taupe matte. This dark brown is quite cool toned as well because it's got a bit of red. This one as well. The only thing that's super warm is this gold thing and then this peach. So those were also things I sort of paired together, but it's quite neutral actually overall. So I was very happy with the way it worked for me. So yeah, I love both of those palettes as well. So that was my top 10 favorite neutral toned eyeshadow palettes. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. I'll make sure to leave any links in the description box down below if I do have any dedicated reviews up on the channel for these. So yeah, this month I'm going to be featuring the Makeup by Mario and the Natasha Denona. So if you want to stay tuned for swatches and all those looks I did, then you're just going to have to stay tuned for those because I always share with those things in my review videos. So like stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, please be noted that I do come on here 4 times a week to share my love for all things makeup with you. So I hope you'd like to thumbs up this video for now and subscribe to the channel. And then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.